Ready? Evening, this is called to order the Police Merit Commission for Franklin City Police Department, October 7th, 2025. Call to order Dr. Schaefer,
Here.
Les Tabling,
Here.
Joe Allen,
Here.
Josh Shanafelt,
Here.
all present. First item, we have claims. Did everybody get a chance to review the claims that were sent out in the package?
If I might, before there's a motion, perhaps it would be, given the discussions, Mr. President, you and I have had, might be best to bifurcate the claims so that we can talk about the testing agency's bill separately.
Gotcha. So first we'll talk about the claims for Mr. Barrett. And
I move that we accept that claim.
first by Dr. Schaefer,
Second.
second by Josh. Any discussion? All in favor of approving the claims for Mr. Barrett, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passes. The second claim that came across was from Testing for Public Safety. I had some questions about this. I'm hoping that we can discuss this before we approve or ask to pause on this. Their pricing has increased. I received some data over the last period of time, and the prices have consistently increased back from 2015. And can I am I allowed to?
Oh, yeah, these are all public record.
2015, $8,250 to currently the last one for our last promotion was $12,500. So I've drafted an email memo. I've sent it to Mr. Barrett for review. I'd like to finish that process now that I've had a chance to bring it up to talk to everybody. Send it to them, ask them to see if they'd like to have a meeting to discuss their pricing and future pricing. I think if my calculations were correct, this current invoice was over 27% higher than 2023.
The last promotion process.
Yeah, from the last. So.
And this promotion process had 5
Right.
applicants.
So, and I don't know, and on some of the claim items, it was right questions was $2,600, develop interview assessment, $2,600. And I understand there has to be some overhead, but that's $500 plus $520 per officer to write questions. And our questions were the same across both categories. There wasn't much change from them. So is it something that we can not, or do we need to pay and then question later? I don't know what the rules would be on that.
Yeah. The billing falls in line with their contract, so ultimately it'll have to be paid.
Okay.
I think perhaps the safest approach is to say to them, we've approved this claim, but before we ever sign another contract or negotiate your next year's contract, we need to talk about this and still have them in, as you were suggesting.
Is our contract year to year with them, or?
Yeah, that's or cycle to cycle.
Okay.
Yeah. So just to be clear, as to the promotions, before they would do another promotion process, presumably in 2027, we typically do it every other year, there'd have to be a new contract.
And before we do a regular
A new hire.
new hire, we should have the
Are we
discussion.
doing a new hire in 2026, Chief?
No, the only hire we'll have will be a replacement for Gordon, but no.
So, but how,
And now-
where's the list? Right.
There's 2 people on the list. The last 2 on the list have not called back. And I believe last meeting, Deputy Chief Summers did mention, and I think you approved us to start the lateral process, because during the year, we do take interest forms for laterals and hiring, and then Haley will send out something. So,
So there
Yeah.
would need to be a new hire process in
No.
26. Because
It's-
it's every even year.
so I think it's,
So the 2024 list
yeah, we just did.
will expire at the end of 26. And so there has to be a process to start another list effective January 1 of 27.
Yeah, I was thinking we just I'll have to look at that to confirm it, but I know there's 2 people on that list that have not returned phone calls, so either they're not interested or we're just not reaching them. And there's only 2
Before the
people.
next
Before the
testing
next
cycle.
testing cycle.
Yeah, before the next testing cycle, I think we'll have that, and I'll generate that email, I'll send it back to you for review before we send it, and then meet with them and just tell them that we're currently not happy with the current pricing, and that may give us time, depending on how that conversation goes, if we need to look for another agency, or what our
Right,
options will be.
right.
We'll have some time.
Do you want to invite them in addition to you talking to them, do you want to invite them into the November meeting?
I think that'd be great, then all of us could.
Yes.
I mean, more, because I know, I'm sure there's points that I'm not thinking of that others would be thinking of for the
Okay.
thing. So I could send them that and then maybe change it, instead of having a Zoom meeting, inviting them to the November meeting to discuss, or both.
You're free to talk to them, or you and I are free to talk to them anytime. For them to talk to the group, it would need to be in a meeting, not necessarily the November meeting.
Sure, okay.
I agree with Joey. I think the prices have gone up exponentially. I also would request from the company, you know, I own a consulting company and I've done this for years. I would never get away with putting round numbers like this, of $500 for something. I mean, look at William Barrett's and Wachowski's. It's per minute they charge. So I just think they need to be more specific and not just charge an even $500 for a job analysis. You know, I want to know how much they're getting per hour and how that's breaking down, because I don't think the city's getting the money, their money's worth here.
I think those are good questions to pose to them.
Well, I'll finish up the email, or the letter that I first drafted. I know there was just a minor couple changes. We'll invite them to the November meeting if able. If they're not able, then, I mean, we'll have time. We can invite them to the January, because there won't be a December meeting, right? So we can offer them to come to a meeting in January, February, because we'll probably be starting to think May, June timeframe for the next cycle, to get that going. You know, always do it in the fall,
Right.
so.
I'm not sure the most efficient way to communicate with them is the firing squad method, with all of us sitting here and shooting questions at the owner, or who's doing that. I think it might be better negotiated with just the president and the attorney, or just seems, I don't know, it just seems pretty aggressive, but maybe that's just me.
Well, maybe the way to approach it then would be to say, let the president have the communications, and if you want me to be part of it, I'm happy to be, and report back at the November meeting, and if you all want to have them in a meeting after that, they'll come in January.
Yeah, I'd appreciate if you'd be involved, just because you have the history
Right.
and everything more than, you know, and I might have to buzz Doc Schaefer, because
Yeah.
he's been doing this for a while with them, so. So I might do that, might include
Yeah, I'm fine
put
to
all three
help.
of us in the group, and that way, if I'm missing something, somebody else would pick it up. Okay. All right, then, based on that conversation, I guess, does anybody have a motion to approve the bill from Testing for Public Safety?
So moved.
Second.
First and a second, any further discussion?
And that was Les who seconded it?
Yes, it was Les.
Thanks.
Okay, all in favor in approving the claim from Testing for Public Safety, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that's passed.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you for that discussion. Next item on the docket is approval of the special meeting minutes for September 2nd. Everybody's had a chance to review those.
And just to refresh your recollection, the President and I had this discussion. We had our regular meeting at 7 scheduled in September. We couldn't get an executive session on at 6:30 because we couldn't communicate with everybody in the short time we had under the open door law. So we canceled the regular meeting. put the executive session at 7, and because we still needed to have a quote-unquote regular meeting or a public meeting, we just moved that to the end instead of after the executive session that started at 7. So that's why it's called a special meeting.
Thank you.
I move we approve the minutes to the special meeting from September 2nd, 2025.
Second.
First by Dr. Schaefer, second by Josh. Any discussion on the minutes? All right, all in favor of passing the minutes for September 2nd, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, those pass also. All right, Chief's report.
Thank you. Just one request. Based on this last promotion test, we do currently have a sergeant opening that Jacob Heine is currently filling and has been filling for about a year from a vacancy. I believe he is the number one sergeant on the list, and I would just request from the board that we'd be able to move forward with his promotion.
Let's keep cart behind horse and
We have to approve the
and
list, don't we?
approve the list and
Okay.
then,
Sorry.
and then,
Sure.
yeah. But that was in my report, sorry, and I didn't put that in front of the chiefs.
Do we just want to do attorney's report first and then do Chief's report?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure, that's fine. So my report is, I have the results of the promotion process. Based on the final scoring, as the chief indicated, Jacob Heine is first for the sergeant promotion. Daniel Collins is second. And on the lieutenant promotion list, Sergeant Mears is first, Sergeant Smiley is second, and Sergeant Oliver is third. And that's all the candidates that ultimately went through, because an additional candidate hadn't completed, hadn't passed the test.
Could you do the lieutenants again?
Sure. Sergeant Ryan Mears is first.
Okay.
Sergeant Matthew Smiley is second. Sergeant Brian Oliver is third.
They all scored in the order that they interviewed.
And so what I have for you tonight are resolutions accepting those test results and certifying the two lists that I just recited. That'll be in place for the next couple of years. So we've got resolution number 1 for the year, and that's the sergeants. Resolution number 2 is the lieutenants, and we need a motion.
Separately or?
I think separately, yeah.
Okay. So the first motion we're looking for is for resolution number 2025-01. It's to approve the sergeant candidate list.
I move.
So moved by Joe. Do I have a second? Second by Les. Any discussion? All in favor of approving the list as discussed, say aye.
All right?
Any opposed? All right, that one passes.
And everybody will need to sign, yeah.
And then the second resolution, 2025-02, it's the same thing. It's for the lieutenant candidates to approve that list.
I move that we approve the lists for the lieutenants.
Second.
Moved by Doc, second by Josh. Any discussion on that? All right, all in favor of passing 2025-02, say aye.
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 I'm gonna pass these around for signature for both of them, please.
Shall we finish this transaction, this piece of it?
Sure.
So just let me remind everyone that unlike a new hire list where you're obligated to feed from the top of the list because of the nature of supervisory roles and trying to fit a first baseman where you need one and a pitcher where you need one, the law allows and your rules and the ordinances allow you to pick from the top 3. You don't have to take number one. As it happens, the chief would like it to be number one, but I always feel it's important to remind you that there's that distinction. So, that's all I wanted to say about that. So Chief, you're asking for the top sergeant candidate to be appointed as sergeant, moved up from acting.
Yes, sir.
List. Listed.
You didn't send us.
All right, so Chief has asked for us to make a motion to promote Jacob Heine.
Here you come.
Any, I'll make the motion. Anybody
I'll
find
second it.
Joe will second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor of approving the motion to promote Jacob Heine, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Chief, that passes.
Thank you. The second order of business is Sean Collins, who is a candidate. He's been hired. He is going to start on November 3rd. So I'm going to give an update on that. And then I am seeking some clarification on the lateral process. Since I was not at the last meeting, I know it was requested that we have permission to begin that lateral process. So I'm just kind of curious, were there any dates discussed? According to Deputy Chief, there were not.
It's probably due to different people using different nomenclature. I asked do you want to start a process, and he said, no, we just want to start collecting names, because that's where we
Yeah.
are, soliciting applications.
And-
So that's all that was voted on. And if what you intended was, yeah, that's the start, but we need to move on to the next
Right.
steps, then I think that request needs
Yeah,
to
and
be
that's
made
on-
now.
Yeah, and that would be my request this evening, is that we have compiled, as I stated earlier, we always have a running list of interests, so that potential candidates can send in their information, if they are lateral or just a candidate for hire. I would just request that we move forward with starting that lateral process, since that list has absolved itself.
What time frame would be looking at? I'm just thinking, trying to time out for interviews and stuff. How much time would you want to leave it open?
Yeah, I would just request that we take, that we go ahead and move forward with taking the applications information through the entire month of October. And then I can update the board at the next November meeting with the test date for those members. So we still have, as you know, the ILEA is changing the testing process. So we want to kind of make sure that we're in line with what their requirements are when we're testing these folks.
Physical testing?
Correct.
Testing.
But I would request that we go ahead and continue the taking of applications specifically for lateral candidates through the month of October to November 1st.
Do you anticipate
Be the
before
deadline.
the end of the year having the interviews, or?
Potentially. I think it would, once we come back in November, that meeting's on the 11th. Is that right, Bill? Does that sound right? Yeah, I believe it's the 11th. We would have
It is, yeah, it is.
Yeah, we'd have a better understanding of how many candidates we have, since we're just communicating. I mean, I can send an email to you and keep you updated, but I think that's in fairness. And we are not in a position where we need to rush this process through. We'd like to have the list certified in January so we can pull somebody from it, but we don't, it's not a rush.
Well, it becomes a rush, trying to schedule interviews.
Trying to get the dates in.
Well, trying to schedule interviews between,
Thanksgiving and Christmas?
yeah, is a challenge. So if you,
Do you need somebody in January, is that what you're saying?
Not necessarily.
I think if you want
Obviously, we'd
a
like
list-
somebody in January, but we'll take it as we can get it.
If you want a list in January that you can pull from, I think it might be prudent to schedule interview dates now. And how many do you think you'll have? Not a fair question, but if we overestimate, maybe we set a longer period or 2
I'd say
days and then
in-
cut it.
I'd say 12 or so,
Okay.
laterals.
Yeah, right, right.
I'm guessing less, but I'd say 12 to be safe.
That's about,
And just so you know, when we take the interest information, we are gathering a lot of data. So what happens is we then send out a formal packet that is inclusive of everything else that we need. So we can shorten the time frame in October if need be, because most of these folks are already aware that they're going to be starting a process and these items are required of them. Most everybody that puts in for a lateral process has been in a lateral process somewhere else. So we could potentially bump that date up if you feel like that'll help and ease some of the pressure to get it through.
If I remember right, interviews for them, we do our own questions. We're not using the testing company.
right.
Yeah.
Questions that
We can,
we've developed over the last couple of years.
so
yeah.
each person interview maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes.
Typically,
So,
20.
so if we said 30 minutes, 12 people, we're looking 6 hours, 7-hour day.
7 hours.
Yeah. So that's probably a Saturday or Sunday.
Are you still working every other weekend?
Yeah. So my availability would be the 13th and 14th right now of December. November is not good for me because the only weekend I have off is Thanksgiving weekend. I don't know if does 13th or 14th work for anybody else if we wanted to try to put that date in.
It worked for me.
The 14th would work for me.
14th?
13th, I would not be available.
Okay. The 14th, how does that look for you, Les?
14th.
14th. Joe, the 14th of December, does that look okay for you?
Yep. 14th of December.
It'll be an all-day event.
So, let me finish that. Probably at the department at start in the morning. But that said, if you close the applications on October 31, you'll know at the November meeting.
Oh,
whether
sure.
it's 12 or whether it's 6.
Right,
And if
you
it's
could adjust.
considerably fewer than 12, you might decide to move it to an evening or something.
Right.
Yeah.
So obviously, there's plenty of time to schedule this under the open door laws. So we'll tentatively call it that date, 12/14, and look at it again in November. Is that all right?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, because that way at least we have the date.
Yeah.
And if the numbers come back and we decide we want to,
Yeah, in fairness, I believe that's going to be a high number, but we'll hope
More
for it.
likely to be 18 than 6.
Right.
all right. So December 14th, reviews. Will we, for the questions for that, will we,
I'll distribute them.
okay,
And
so we don't have to have a meeting, or we don't, because we don't have to prove those, because we're doing our own, okay, great.
Last time, as I recall, when we did the lateral interviews, we felt like we didn't have enough information about them before the interviews started. It was just kind of like, we didn't even get a resume, we didn't even know what their experiences were, and the questions are so regimented, you can't even find out a lot of that information. So I don't think we need a whole big file, but I think, a resume and what they've done, and just for something to look at and to separate either an hour before we do it, or if possible, electronically before then. I don't know what's legal.
I believe we sent it electronically to either you or Joey before, and then you were able to disseminate it out safely. We're okay, we can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Lieutenant Hinkle did it last time, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can certainly do that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And the good thing, I think, is the questions can be more open, too, for us. when we-
Yeah, I mean, you can have more open questions. They just have to be the same questions.
Right, yeah.
For each of them. I think everybody knows that, so, okay.
Okay, that'd be great, yeah, because if that could be given out to us, first week of December, then we'd be able to have that to go over.
Because if there really are a dozen or more, it'll take a while to get through those.
And like Doc said, I think just a resume, work, their work history resume, I don't think we need the whole
Okay,
packet, just enough to know who we're seeing.
sure.
Okay. Good discussion. Chief, what else do you have for us?
The only other thing I would just like to mention, we had some lengthy discussion today, and it comes up often, if you want to know, great, but the body cameras. When we first got the body cameras, everybody was all worried about what's going to happen and the fact that we got to wear them. And Deputy Chief Summers and I today fielded a couple of complaints that came in over the weekend. And I won't go into specifics of the complaints because they were unfounded. What we were able to determine after watching the body camera footage, that both those complaints they basically were false reports against two officers. And I had a conversation with both the citizens, explained to them that we hold our officers accountable. That's why we wear body cameras, but we also hold citizens accountable. So we have pushed those reports back, at least one of them, back to the officer, who would have the option to file with the prosecutor. Someone made a false report. So the reason I bring that up is because we spend a lot of money on those body cameras, and the public's always quick to look at a quick snippet of a body camera and make a decision. And I would just remind folks that there's a whole lot more to what you're not seeing a lot of times. And with these officers, it was proven that all the allegations were false. And I can say this with confidence, 100% of the time we've had an officer complaint since we started wearing these body cameras, we've been able to exonerate the officer from doing any wrongdoing. So kudos to the officers for their, because sometimes when you come in as a chief or an administrator and you see a 3-page complaint about an officer, and some of these things are very serious, it does kind of make your skin crawl a little bit. And so the body cameras have been a good tool for us, and we appreciate having that tool. You're now used to it, and you just forget about it. But it does also give administration an opportunity to have a live view of how the officers are actually reacting, and same as the situation we had earlier. So just wanted to make you aware of that. We had some good positive, and I had great conversation with the citizens afterwards. I'm not sure why, people see things from a different lens, I guess. And it's, we're talking about domestic situations where there's a lot of things happening in the mine. So no excuse to make a false report, but on the same token, it happened and we dealt with it. We are doing this will be the 8th year for the annual toy drive at the police department. We do have a couple of local groups that are partnering with us on that. At the next meeting, I'll provide those dates, and we'd love to see some of you come out to that. It's a pretty big deal for the police department and the community. We do a wrapping party. We provide some food and drinks, and it's a good way to fellowship with citizens and have the officers there and be able to meet the citizens on a different level, and also provide for the families locally. We did over 100 families last year, and that's fairly consistent each year. So I'll get those dates to you at the next meeting, or have Haley send it out. But we are going to start collecting toys for that toy drive. So, yep, that's all I have.
All right, thanks, Chief. Brent, did you have anything else on your attorney's report?
Just
Oh, sorry.
1 second.
Another piece of paper?
Yeah, a lot of notes tonight.
I'm gonna sign this
Well,
one.
I started to say, or I was going to say, that our last meeting is going to be in November, but that's not the case now because, or it may not be the case depending on how things break with the lateral. So I just wanted to solicit from all of you whether there's anything you want by way of additional information from me or from the chief before the end of the year, because we typically wouldn't meet in December. We probably won't have too big an agenda in November, other than the things we've just talked about,
Sure.
which is getting the lateral program started, and the discussion of the annual toy drive. But, so there's room if there are other things that need to be discussed.
Did we make a motion to move forward with the lateral process? Did we need to do that? We talked about it, but I don't know that we ever did.
You
it.
did not?
No, that's right, because we didn't get a date
Yeah.
last time.
All
So,
right.
Okay.
So going backwards,
Yep, yep.
do we have a motion? Chief's requested that we progress with the lateral process and officially start the process. Do we have a motion for that to be approved?
So moved.
Josh?
Second.
Josh and Doc. We have a first and a second. Any further discussion on the lateral process? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, that makes that December 14th date a little better.
Sorry, was it John and Josh or Josh and John?
Josh and then Josh.
Josh and John.
Too many J's.
That's right. So other than the question I mentioned a moment ago, no, I don't have anything else.
Okay, did anybody have anything for Chief or? All right,
New business.
I'll report to everybody after you and I talk to IPS.
okay.
I do have a question. Josh and I have talked before about the availability of a roster of officers, even maybe including their photos, because he and I are downtown all the time. It'd be nice to be able to recognize them and you know, be able to call them all by name without having to stand right next to them and look at their badge.
Yeah.
That would be great.
I'll have to get with Haley and she can compile something. I don't know about getting the photos together, but
Thank you.
it'll take a little bit of time. Les, if you want, just shoot an email or swing by as a reminder that what exactly you're wanting. You just want the name and a face or,
That's basically it, a name and a face.
yeah.
Is there any new business? Any old business?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Third.
I missed 2 seconds. Was it Les or Josh? Josh, so Doc and Josh. All right, we've had a motion to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?